Welcome to the Below the Line podcast. My name is David Duggan, and I'm one of the members of a team made up of experts from the worlds of business, elite sport, adventure, and health and well-being. We are coaches, mentors, and advisors to some of the world's biggest companies and organisations, as well as smaller businesses, entrepreneurs, and people looking to make their mark in the world. Our guiding mantra at Below the Line is live well, perform better. What does that mean, you might ask? Good question. Maybe the easiest way to describe it from our perspective is finding the formula that works for you when it comes to things like looking after your physical and mental health, running your business, developing your career, leading your people, or simply being able to show up as brilliantly as possible into your own life, both for yourself and those around you. That's why each week I sit down with a member of our team or an invited guest to discuss a performance-related topic connected to their area of expertise. We keep it short and sweet so that you can extract all the good stuff and get on with the rest of your day, and hopefully put some of our knowledge, experience and expertise into play for yourself. This week I'm joined by a very special guest, Alan Boyle, technology expert and principal at Saltwater Consulting, specialising in helping companies in the tech space to grow and scale. For me, this conversation was about picking the brain of someone whose attitude and approach to business and life I greatly admire, and I got to ask Alan about what motivates him to do what he does, what key challenges he sees the businesses he works with right now facing, as well as his thoughts on how technology will influence and impact our lives over the coming years. For Alan, it's all about teaching people to fish, giving them the tools to be able to eventually do for themselves what he has been brought in to help them with, which typically revolves around making the interface between technology and people in organisations work in the right ways to help both the business and the people in them to thrive and grow. You can subscribe at www.belowtheline.ie, where you can stay up to date with our podcast, as well as exclusive online events and sessions, including our Press Pause coaching community and our next story coaching programme, kicking off on the 31st of January 2022. Thanks for listening, and see you next week. Just gonna fire away with that first one. Just why do you do what you do, and see where it takes us.
Yeah, it's interesting in terms of why I do what I do. I did this exercise with Peter Mohan actually on finding my why. I was actually thinking, hang on, I'm helping companies find their whys or find their purpose, and I need to realize what is mine. And after a robust process, we came out with to create the capacity to help people grow. And I realized then, like looking back, it's always been around the people for me. So I've worked in technology for many years, and it's always been around the people side of it. How do we develop the people? How can we get people to feel that they can grow in their career? How do we make sure that we're hiring for the next job? We're hiring people that potentially have they may not have the skills now, but they have the ability for the next job. And I think, I've been working in technology for many years, and I had an opportunity to join one of the large tech firms when I returned to Ireland in 2018. And that technology company, tech firm, Amazon Web Services, has like the rest of Amazon, a remarkable ability to operate and to operate at scale. So I sort of look at that time that I spent there as my special ops training. I learned a lot about operational and operational metrics. I learned a lot about scale. And I'd looked back in my previous career and how companies, how I'd helped or worked with companies and helped grow the people inside those companies. I thought, hang on, this is interesting. And I don't think I was ever cut out to be a sort of a manager in a very, very large organization. And after a few years at Amazon, I realized, hang on, I need to go and help teach people how to fish. And I think that's where I went back into starting my own business, consulting business, to work specifically with technology companies to help them or teach them how to fish and teach them how to scale. And the technology companies, the tech founders typically that I work with, they understand the technology. They get it. I'm not there to challenge what they do or their product. But one of the things where I find that there's a few blind spots is it's the people side. Technologists a lot of the time will say, hang on, we just use technology and replace the people, but you need the people to build it. And it's the people side. And when you put engineers together with salespeople, together with marketing people, with projects and customers, that's where there's sometimes a few blind spots. And I can put some foundations in place to help these companies potentially scale. So I think people talk about scaling fast. I like to talk about scaling well. I think that's why I do what I do. It's really just to help these tech leaders and tech companies and their management teams just identify the best ways to develop their teams and to grow their teams.
What is it about the people side of it that you see, or what are the common mistakes that you see a lot of these companies making?
It's the basics that you see, and you'll see this through coaching. I mean, I would typically be consulting to companies, so I'd be offering advice. Coaching is more, the listening side of things. But I think within tech companies, technology-driven people, and again, I'm generalizing here, but you get a lot of introverts in technology, particularly within the people doing the coding, people that like to put the headphones on and spend all day coding and don't necessarily like to engage with other people. So there's that. And I think the people that can be a little bit introverted don't necessarily speak up. They're not having the water cooler conversations. They're not necessarily getting out there and mingling or networking their way into the next job or going through promotion. So that's one area, making sure that there's clear direction for people to grow, and understanding, firstly, are these people more introverted, more extroverted? Are they an individual contributor, or do they want to lead a team? Because a lot of the time, and you see this often in technology, is individual contributors get good at what they do, and they need to be paid more to retain them. So they get put into management roles, and suddenly a whole team of people put under them. And that's where they become overwhelmed and struggle. And they sort of have this view of the world that they're a tech leader, so they're helping the rest of their team with the technology. But the management teams have a view of the world that they're now the new manager, and that they've actually got to manage the development of all these people. And that's where they struggle. So I think that's one of the blind spots. And I think making it quite clear on which path these individuals are going on, whether it's down a management route and down a tech route, and then making sure whatever path they go on, that they understand what the roles and responsibilities are of the next job are. And I think something I heard just on a podcast recently, quite an interesting one, it's the High Performance podcast. I've mentioned it once or twice and press pause. You've got to be careful not to over promote people too soon. You don't promote people too soon. So, that's another thing I find is people potentially show a little bit of potential and they get put into a bigger role too soon. And I think that's a challenge, because then once they're in that role, it's very hard to get out of that role, and they become overwhelmed, and it impacts their careers. And I think the over promotion piece is quite important. So developing career plans for people so that they know what they need to be doing to operate at a certain level. And that level might be the promotion level. And when they're actually demonstrating that they can do that job, that's when the promotion comes. And people will be happy with that, because they'll know exactly what needs to be done to get to the job, and they'll be able to demonstrate that they can do the job, and they'll feel pretty fulfilled doing that as well. So I think that's a blind spot. And then I think just basic communications, getting the teams together, expectations. Technologists like to build code. They like to write code. There's this mentality that you've got to build fast and break things, or break things and build fast, or whatever it is. I forget what it is. But they do that, and they may have a live product that they're constantly updating. They're adding new features. They're changing things on the go. Whereas a sales team that might be put in place to sell that product and get it to market may want a little bit more stability. They want to be doing live demos with customers. So suddenly the two teams have different expectations. One wants a stable product, and the other one wants to deliver features quite quickly. And I think sometimes that can lead to disconnect. So I think another blind spot I see in my consulting engagements is the handover processes. How you hand over. So everyone documents their own processes. I know what I need to do in sales. I know what I need to do in engineering and marketing. But what about the handover processes between the teams? When a product gets pushed out to market, or when a marketing campaign is going to be run, or what the marketing roadmap looks like. So again, it's just connecting the teams through potential blind spots.
Yeah. Are you a coder yourself by training or background?
I'll tell you, I don't code at all. I do come from a system admin background. So back in the days where it was all popular to go and build Microsoft environments and learn how to do Microsoft certified principles, I come from that. So in those days, we would be called system admins. You would go in there, you would build the infrastructure, but I wouldn't be able to write a line of code. I could find my way through a little bit of code from time to time, but no, I'm not a technologist from that perspective. I'm not a coder. Yes, that is a challenge sometimes when I'm talking directly to the software engineers. But I've run software development teams in the past and helped bring products to market. So I have an understanding of everything, but no, I can't write a line of code at all. It's something I've been meaning to try and learn. But then, coding is a language, and if I look at my track record in learning languages, it hasn't been too good either. So I'm destined for failure there.
Yeah, I looked at it a little while ago myself, and you're right. It's another language, and it's completely foreign to me. But look, so you've been in organizations, you've ran teams. Obviously, you've stepped out of that world, and now you're consulting back into them. So, and this is a fairly recent transition for you. So I'm just wondering, how have you found navigating that line between supporting and challenging the businesses or the clients you're working with? How's that worked out for you?
It's interesting, and I've had a few conversations with people within the Press Pause community and within other communities that have said, you'd be a good coach, and you tend to sort of get people, you understand what they think and how they think. And I said, yeah, do you know what? I don't think so. I think I would err too much on telling people what to do or suggesting, and that's where the consulting piece comes in. I'm not, but I do want to teach people how to fish. So as I said earlier, I don't want to go in there and say, and then do all the delivery, because you end up just doing all the work. You want to sort of start by showing people what they need to do. So for example, I just got off a call with a customer. They're a large technology team of around 300 people, and they're doing a lot of hiring at the moment. And one of the things I wanted to do was get them to put in a launch plan. And on LinkedIn, I've been talking about a lot over the last month around onboarding and launch plans. So new employee onboarding and putting the ownership on the new employee to take control of their own onboarding in a company. So we put a template together, and the template basically says, what month one will look like, month two, the systems they need to get, the people they need to meet. And that launch plan was something that I actually co-created. So I did some delivery work with a customer. And then I said to them, this is why I think it's good. This is why it's important. There's a lot of people onboarding at the moment. You want to reduce the risk of retention. You want to reduce the risk of this person feeling lost at sea, especially in a remote environment. So this is why the launch plan is a mechanism that I think will work in your business. So once we've done the template and we have an idea of what's in, they can do the rinse and repeat. They can add it into their operational playbook. So I'll support them there, but I'm not actually going to do every single launch plan with every single member of staff that joins. So that's give them the tool to add to their toolkit and show them how it works, explain why, bring it back to the values and why it's important to have it. And then I think just back to the question around challenging versus supporting, something that I'm really strong in is, and it's part of my mission is, I want to augment what works, find what works within a customer's environment and augment that. And really expose that and really look for the wins. But I'm going to challenge what doesn't. So if things aren't working, I have no problem challenging. And I've often had meetings with customers that have been pretty hairy, I think. And you talk about the journey as a consultant. I'm quite new to it, so maybe I'm a bit naive. But I'll go into a customer and I'll be very prepared in every meeting I have to speak my mind on how I feel about how they're running their business and where they need to improve and where I need to challenge. And on one or two occasions, I've said to the customer, look, if you feel this is not going to work or you're not happy with my approach, that's fine. I'll walk away today. And that's the agreement I have is, I'm prepared to walk away from any situation if I feel strongly about something. A lot of the times the customers, and I've learned this as well over time, is you need to maybe give people a little bit of time and not come too heavy-handed. I think my tone sometimes can be a bit strong. But normally a couple of days later, that customers come around and said, yeah, Alan, we've looked at what you've said. It makes sense. How do we approach making this change? So I tend to stick my ground. And, sometimes I have to get off a call and pop downstairs to the dinner table. And I chat to my wife a lot about sort of my day and what I've done. And should I have taken this approach? She's a coach, actually. So sometimes I get some free counseling from her, which is quite handy. But I stand to my conviction that I really would challenge customers because I really become part of their team, and I want them to succeed. And I really try and push that big picture out as much as possible. So yeah, it is a fine line. You want to support, but you have to challenge, because growth is painful, and you've got to challenge a lot. And that's why I'm there. I'm there to help these companies scale. I'm not there to be a yes person in their organization.
What are maybe the top 2 or 3 most common business or performance challenges that you're coming across right now?
Top one is hiring. Even in companies that are not scaling, we've all heard about this great recession. People are leaving. People want, it's a buyer's market in terms of people looking for jobs. And also people are realizing, hang on, we don't need to trek into the city every day or commute. We can have a different type of lifestyle. Younger people are starting to err towards that nomadic lifestyle. I mean, I'm collaborating with people that are working in Portugal, that are working in the Canaries, and they're operating in a freelance, and they've left corporates. They've actually left corporates to operate in a similar capacity to myself, where they're helping companies do work. So I think the challenges is there a shift in people wanting full-time versus the ability to have flexibility? And hiring is a big challenge. A lot of managers are able to manage an existing team, a team that what I would call tenured, or somebody that's been in the role, they've been onboarded, they're going. But when people start leaving and they spend a big chunk of their week in interviews, making decisions around hiring, dealing with recruitment companies, managing onboarding, worrying about potential flight risks where their best people might just hand in their resignation any day, I think recruitment is a big challenge. And the recruiters will tell you they're all underwater at the moment. I mean, every recruiter in town is busy. So there's a lot of activity, and that's putting a lot of pressure on managers, because they don't know whether their teams are going to stick around or not. And I think the remote versus hybrid, one or the other worked. If companies were born in the cloud and they were distributed to start, they're just cracking on with it. Companies that were in the office, are wanting to potentially get staff back. The staff are saying we don't want to work at the office, and it's that because this hybrid model, I think, has its own challenge. I think you can do one or the other easily, but you can't do a hybrid model, and it's a real challenge, I think, for management teams, for employees, employers, for everybody. And I think something came up in the news the other day. The big tech firms are all wanting, and their staff are wanting to get back to the office. So the companies that are designing the tools to allow us to enable, work remotely, those companies themselves are wanting to bring people into the office and see the benefit of the collaboration you get from an office environment. So I think there's a couple of challenges. It's the office dynamic, office versus remote, and it's hiring, in my mind.
You mentioned there that hybrid doesn't work. Why doesn't it work in your view?
Hybrid means there's an expectation that you need to be in the office a couple of days a week, right? So fully distributed, there's an expectation that you never need to be in the office. And maybe once a year or twice a year, the team gets together for an all hands. They do their end of year celebration. They do their goal planning, and they bring the whole team together. And there is a cost involved in bringing that whole team. There's a company called Automatic. Matt Mullenweg runs that business, and he was the person that developed the internet Woo themes. They're fully distributed. They don't have an office. They've pretty much shut down their main central office. They've just literally got a postal address, but they bring however many people, I think it could be 1,000 people together once a year. And there's a cost involved in that, but they don't have office space or anything. So that's fine. The big offices are designed to have people in the office, but the hybrid model suggests that people will be able to commute. So if you're living 4 or 5 hours away, how are you going to get into the office twice a week? It is going to require a lot of logistics. What happens if you don't want to come into the office? So you still having to be within that commuter belt, within the city, etc. So that's why I think hybrid has its challenges from that perspective. And I think, again, we don't know yet what's going to happen, but people have got to go through promotion cycles. People have got to go through the development. And a lot of that, believe it or not, is still built around relationships. If you're in the office, if you're meeting people, and if you're on 2 days a week and the rest of your team are on the other 2 days a week, and you're not actually seeing that team, you could go a year or two without actually potentially connecting with some very important people. in your team, but also from a career level, in terms of your growth in your next career. So, and that's why I think hybrid is tricky. It's just like, we're trying to make it work for everyone. Yeah, come in a couple of days a week, it'll be great. The rest of the time you can't. But I think there's got to be you've got choice. You can come into the office. The office is there. We're going to be running our quarterly meetings in the office. So we expect you to be there for 2 to 3 days a month when we run our quarterly planning sessions, or we're going to be doing code camps where we bring all the engineers together, and they're going to be doing a hackathon type thing, and you make it fun. And you have planned intentional gatherings of people. But this whole, every week you're going to be in the office 2 days, you're not going to be in the office 3 days. I just can't see that working. I struggle to see that that working in this modern age now.
What is your advice for any leader or team charged with scaling or growing a business right now?
I think get the basics right around people. So and understand what's been happening with the team over the last few years. So start calculating certain metrics like churn rate. How many people are leaving the organization? How many people are you onboarding? How many people are you promoting? Are you performance managing people? Because if you're not, then you're keeping the bad apples on, which impacts the rest of the team. So you should really be focusing on the people side and developing key people. As I said earlier, making sure you're hiring for the next role. So when you bring people in so that they feel that they're being stretched, but that you can give them the skills. They want to be challenged, but it's all around the people side. Yes, you've got to get product to market. Yes, you've got to support your customer if you're a call center, or you've got to provide whatever services you need, or implement broadband, or do whatever you need to do. But without the people, none of that's going to happen. So make sure that you're putting a lot of focus in a week. And managers, again, I'm speaking from the tech industry, but tech managers like the tech. They would much rather be going and coding with the people that they worked with in the team many years before, than actually having to worry about developing people. So sometimes they step into a comfort zone of, let's focus on the technology, and they forget the big challenges, which are the people. So my advice for leaders would be it's very much around the people. Get the people and the processes right, and let those people look after the technology.
And on the tech, what ways do you see, or do you think technology will influence our lives over the next couple of years?
You're asking me to make some predictions here?
Yeah, just predict the future there.
Yeah, no problem. Look, it's always been evolving. I think, if you look, at Henry Ford sticking the car in there and replacing the horse, and I think it was, the gramophone replaced a piano, and now the piano is an object of desire, and, whatever. But technology is always changing. I mean, I was at the rugby the other day, and we were very fortunate to have a good Irish win against New Zealand. But I was at the rugby the other day, and there's no cash. You're using a phone to get the barcode scanned to get in. And when you're going to get a drink, there's no cash. There's people coming up to you with machines, and you tap the machine. And so whereas 2-3 years ago, everybody was handing cash over at a game. So cash has been replaced just in 2 years completely. So look at the businesses that support cash, cash in transit, collecting, stock taking, all of the things that are around what a cash business is. Cash is gone. And if you look at some of the newer technologies like blockchain, and making sure, again, I've worked in different roles before, but one particular role was implementing a virtual mobile top-up system in Nigeria. And that project, I went on a couple of trips there. Cash in Nigeria was a major problem. There was a lot of fraud around it. There was money being moved around. And they're the first country now to put their currency, the Naira, onto the blockchain particularly. So they're starting to embrace some of the crypto. So I don't know, in terms of the future, where's it going? It's always going to evolve. If you look at how quickly we adapted to a Zoom meeting, the future, there's talk around this metaverse. So, am I going to have a dinosaur avatar? Are you going to have a Star Wars avatar? And we're going to have the same conversation and have serious faces while we have that conversation? I don't know. I think there's going to be a few game layers added to what we do around people's identity and avatars. And I think, you're hearing a lot about this metaverse at the moment. And I think that's a very interesting place. Are people going to be designing their holidays, their futures, their houses, and living in these virtual spaces, and showing off in those virtual spaces in terms of what they own, what they have? And I think that it's a fascinating space that I'm really struggling to keep up with. So yeah, I think the technology is evolving. I think in an Irish context, there's been a lot of bad press about the national broadband rollout. I think with this new nomadic lifestyle that we're living, is the sooner we get good connectivity to every household in the country, the better. I was away in Dingle a couple of weeks ago, and I was able to do calls. I was able to do my business. It was absolutely fantastic. The Airbnb I stayed in was connected up with fiber. The whole town's been connected up with fiber. Now, you imagine you can go anywhere in Ireland and be able to just work and know that you just walk into a place, a meeting room, a hotel room, whatever, and you can have a high quality video call. That's where the technology needs to go. So I think people tasked with putting broadband into countries need to be operating quickly and smoothly and connect everybody, because I think that's big. And I think it's big in every country, and emerging countries as well, is when you've got the broadband. You've seen it in India when they reduced the cost of mobile data. The literacy rates improved. People had access to read books on their devices. So again, it doesn't matter which country you're in, whether it's emerging or a first world country. Connectivity is key. Get the broadband access in place. That drives the learning, the curiosity, and it gets people connected. So long answer, but sort of my rambles on technology in the future.
Fascinating, thank you. And one last supplementary question. The strap line or the tagline that we use in Below the Line is "Live well, perform better." So, in order to perform better, what do you do to?
In terms of my routines?
Yeah. Any little hacks or little things that you do that help you show up better?
I'd like to say I meditate every day. That I do all of these things, and some of those good habits have slipped. I read a lot. I read daily and every day. I would get through a book a week generally, and sometimes I'd have 3 or 4 books on the go. I'd listen to books in Audible. I think a big hack for me was learning not to listen to techno music running or to heavy metal when at the gym, and actually listening to audiobooks, so that you habit stacking. So I think that's something is the reading for me is important, and something I do every day. And also just try and get the exercise out early. I mean, I've got an hour between 6 and 7 in the morning before I need to be back for family commitments. And if I can get the exercise part of my day done, whether it's a run or going to gym, and get that done by 7, the rest of the day just stacks up nicely. So that's my little hack.
Fantastic. Alan, thanks a million for that. That was really so fascinating, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do it.
Not at all. Great to be on. Thanks, Dave.